Good afternoon, good morning, or good night to all of our followers and listeners, our audience, whether you're via audio or video. It's another episode of the Iowa's Tea Podcast. I am Mike.
And I'm Dimitri.
And I'm Q. If you are going to sleep, we might do an ASMR episode then.
we're sorry about the price. The price is really bad.
Yes. Speaking of price, we'll actually talk about markets here coming up, but we want to talk about the quarter two results that came out. I know once we get into the topics, but I guess we can say it right now, right? Quarter two, tier one node. Congratulations, everybody.
We're 2-0, man. We're 2-0. Shout out to you guys for all your hard work, the rest of the SV team. Shout out to obviously those that are voting for us and staking with us. You know, the node's always up. We're always running this podcast pretty much weekly. We're out there, you know, talking to people about Iowa's Tea, doing everything we can here in the States, you know, really across the country to get the word out about Iowa's Tea. So 2-0 now on tier one, which means you voters, you stakers, whatever you want to call it, you're going to get basically the most reward out of us versus those who fall into tier two, tier three, tier four. So I know what happened at the end of the first quarter, which was a shorter period. It was only about 22 days, I think, that the quarterly rewards were accumulated. Now it's been that full 91 days, I think. So The rewards are going to be significantly fatter here. It's at this point, I think we're starting to kind of see those nodes that are going to hit tier one consistently and those that aren't. So, you know, make sure you're voting and getting the maximum reward that you can.
Right. Yeah, we heard quite a bit of feedback after that came out, obviously. And, you know, some people that voted for those nodes that did not make, you know, tier one or tier two that they were hoping, were kind of upset. But, you have to really kind of look at it objectively as much as possible to make this whole thing work. So
yeah, and like these guys said, thank you to the community members that have been voting for us. That really keeps us visible among the community. You guys joining our Telegram group, that's huge too. We have a lot of things planned for quarter three and quarter four as far as people who are voting for us or kind of in quotations members. So that's something that we're going to roll out over the next coming weeks for you guys to give you guys better benefits for being a part of this like Sutler Ventures ecosystem of sorts. So be on the lookout for that. We have a ton of stuff coming up over the next couple weeks as far as Sutler Ventures goes and Iowa's Tea.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all excited for some new things for Iowa's Tea, some expansion. You know, I think there's going to be some really interesting things for those folks who have been with us from the jump at the beginning of the year, and also those who are, you know, just learning about Iowa's Tea, just learning about Sutler. So some good things coming. But you know, as we kind of move on to the next topic here on the list, I see a lot of frowny faces. What's going on? Is there some sort of comfort that people are looking for in the market, Dima? What's
Mike,
going
you
on?
haven't checked CoinMarketCap?
Oh no, I've been in the mountains, like you said. What's happening? I have no idea.
Well, while you were gone,
how was that trip?
Trip was great. Yeah, trip was a lot of fun. Sorry, I couldn't make it. I was gonna call in and troll you guys or something, but
do you have reception at that high altitude there, or?
Well, it's kind of like you remember Iowa's Tea Land?
Yeah.
Right, whereas like you guys like live on the other side of the tracks. I just think like the phones up there don't communicate with the phones down here or something like that. So, yeah, it's one of those things.
But yeah, market volatility is what we call it. You know, in trading. So
that's
obviously
my safe word, market volatility.
Yeah, market volatility. You know, we have up days, we have down days. You know, obviously, you know, one thing that actually people forget is that the price of a token does not necessarily represent the value of, you know, what's behind the project. You know, really the valuation for the projects it's hard to like come up with a decent, you know, price because it's not like traditional finance. So there's obviously, you know, speculation involved in it, and also we have a lot of retail that's on board, right? So and retail tends to be shaken out quickly when there's price movement that's happening, you know, in tokens that they're holding. You know, they might not be able to afford to hold it, you know, when it drops like 50%. You know? But knowing that historically in crypto that happens quite often, you know, so something like this, it's still kind of surprising that people are still like, hey, that's it, this is the doomsday, but hey, we've been here so many times, so nothing different.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, the whole point about history and what we've seen historically is key, right? I mean, crypto is very cyclical. You can see a lot of patterns, especially if you've experienced those patterns, whether it's altcoins versus Bitcoin and kind of the dominance cycle that we're seeing now, or if it's, IOST or just Bitcoin in general, right? You kind of see periods of elation and then you see periods of depression, right? So I think you're exactly right in that there were very few people who were able to get in at half a penny, in the bear market. Those are the ones that are still doing very well. They're still up, something like 30-40% on their investment there. But obviously most people aren't buying at the depths of the bear market, right? You have to find the project early. You have to, kind of go out on a limb and, hope that is the bottom in a market that is, steadily declining. So those that got in that kind of winter time frame of 2018, 2019, they're okay. Obviously, they'd love to see the 3.5x gains that we saw at 1.5 and almost 2 cents. But, now that we've fallen back down, I think, to your point, we're seeing a lot of those folks who maybe got in at, 1.2 or 1.3 cents. And as it kind of broke that 1 cent barrier, they just, had to basically get something out because it's a 3-month investment or a 6-month investment, or, they just want the protection of a stable coin. So,
yeah. And that's something, I'll talk about in Dimitri's desk as well. But like a lot of people were playing that range. So some of the traders that played that range, basically, they would have their stop losses set up outside of that range is where we dipped, which escalated that move and pushed the price lower, which, for them, the traders that played the range, they're just playing the risk reward. They might not necessarily be the guys who really believe in a project or there to like stay for a while, but they were, maybe just trading the range just to make the profit. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Look at this guy shilling Dimitri's desk. You learning from BitBoy now. Always ABS, baby. ABS.
Always be shilling.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because the people that you get into crypto, whether it be friends or family or acquaintances, they're never texting you as much when it's going up as when it's going down. So they always enjoy the good times, but when it goes bad, they're always the first one to text you. So I've been getting hit with that. The first thing I tell them is that if it was easy, everybody would do it. There's hard parts to this, and that's what we're in. But it's funny calling yourself a veteran when you've only been it for 2.5, 3 years, but I feel like at this point we know what's going on, especially the people that have been here for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's what me and Dimitri were laughing at with Connor here this morning, where it's like, okay, we were just in literally the longest crypto bear market that we've ever seen. It was like 19-20 months. We jumped from 3,500 to 14K, and then we dumped down slightly under 10K. Hopefully it's not at like 7K as people are listening to this podcast on Wednesday or Thursday, but excuse me, but it's just kind of ironic, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who started in the bear market or who started in the bull market and made it through the bear market, and now that we have a slight correction on alts, who many of which IOST included from the bear market did many multiples, half a penny up to a penny and 8/10, right? So you're at like 350% there or whatever. That's not just going to continue to climb to 10 cents in the way that Bitcoin is not just going to continue to climb from 14 to 16 to 18 to 20, right? It's not as much as people, I think, expect for the money to be easy and it just, get to 50K in, 3 months and then they sell it and they make a ton of money. It's just it's not how any market really works, understanding that crypto is like the craziest market you could possibly be in from a volatility and emotional, standpoint.
It's far from being mature market for sure. So, expecting these volatile pullbacks is normal. And, like you said, we were talking before this podcast where I was saying that a lot of these people are retail traders and they'll see that, okay, BTC is getting out of the bear market, this is the bull market, we're gonna get into this crazy run that's gonna go to like 33K. I mean, McAfee said 1 million, so he's doubling down on that. So what they do is they basically start buying it aggressively with high leverage, and they forget about these pullbacks. And then what essentially happens is that you'll have these retail traders run out of money, get stopped out so many times, but by the time the actual bull run starts, it's sad, but like that's actually true.
Yeah,
definitely. So now that you got your kind of psychiatrist fix for the week, let's talk. Well, we do have something to talk about at the end of the episode. It's kind of a group that we've started to organize of like really, I guess,
passionate.
What would the word be? Passionate and involved community members. I'm not going to really say anything right now. We're going to talk about it at the end of the episode, and maybe we're not going to even talk about it a lot then because it really hasn't been hashed out yet.
You're such a tease.
But we're working on it. Otherwise, let's get into the episode. I know it's been we're trying to soothe ourselves there, but Mike, you're going to talk about the Q2 results and thoughts. So, based on what happened with the final result rankings, were there any surprises to you? Did you see anything that maybe you expected not to see?
I don't think so. I think it was very similar to the Q1 contribution results in the sense that I think we saw another quarter with results that are pretty fair, right? There are always going to be folks who feel like they did more, but maybe didn't do enough to make tier 1, or, there might even be folks in tier 1 or tier 2 who are like, wow, I didn't do that much. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
There's always kind of that filtering that happens, and it's never going to be a perfect process. But the biggest thing that I see looking at the contribution rewards broadly is that you have a lot of the major players, right? Major players being those nodes who control a lot of votes, right? Your Huobi's, a lot of these various kind of investment groups, or just kind of nameless, Chinese
faceless,
or Korean, faceless, right? It's a good way to put it. Some of them are nameless though too. I think I just blank on BIS. They're hitting tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. So to me, that tells me that we're not seeing like a lot of collusion between the IOST Foundation, ICAC, and these nodes, where that is obviously one of the major problems with a hybrid delegated proof of stake or a pure delegated proof of stake model, whether it's EOS or Lisk or so many others, where if that collusion starts to happen and all of the rewards are basically just given to those who control the block production on the network, you start to run into the qualms and the argument around, is this decentralized, or is this kind of just a colluded group of nodes who are sharing rewards with each other and kind of keeping the decentralization at a bare minimum.
And what honestly happens is you have those that would really commit to the community and put out a lot of things and to try to grow the network. And those people not making enough rewards to continue that business, they're going to drop out altogether. And then you lose out on that kind of possibility of that network effect by just having the top people be, whoever has the most money. So for those of you that don't know, that may be listening to, the IOST podcast and don't know a lot about those contribution wars, essentially the IOST team, there's like a 25%. Well, I guess Mike's the best at this, but more rewards ranking higher, the node gets more rewards, and therefore the voters get more rewards there. So it's a kind of a way to decentralize that process. But I thought there were some comments about collusion with Berminal. A lot of people were wondering why the heck Bermie and Berminal were so high when Bermie hasn't even come to the platform yet. So that was a situation there. Everyone's always going to be upset, and I think it's only going to get worse and worse as the more competition comes in. I think Q1 was easy. It was very cut and dry. Q2 a little bit less, and then on and on and on. And then what you're going to have is like a bunch of these people claiming a bunch of different things. So what did you guys think about those comments?
What do you think, Dean?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. One thing that actually, I've talked about is, and I'm sure the community talked about it as well, is, to have those contribution reports public. you know, to have some kind of information, or at least like what was the decision done behind putting, let's say, that specific node into tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, because, you know, that's something that's hasn't really been showing from IOST.
Right.
I think, you know, from that standpoint, like if you have that information presented, I think it'll just clear up the picture a little bit more, rather than just a bunch of people, you know, getting angry and then, you know, arguing in Telegram. Well, why is this getting? Why is Berm there? Why is Berminal here? You know,
Right.
Because we have to, you know, understand that some of the things that are probably happening that are getting submitted, you know, it's in Asia, you know, so it might not be getting through to us in terms of the media and publications, but maybe, you know, they're doing things in the background that we don't see.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I think that was kind of one of the biggest qualms, like you said, with those in the, especially the main IOST chat, as I was kind of following along as those results came out, and there were a lot of people who were like, you know, so-and-so did so good. How did they, you know, we talk to them all the time. They say they're doing all this stuff. How did they make tier 4? I'm not going to get any rewards, you know, what the hell kind of deal. Whereas if you actually then look at the contribution report, you know, you can see the difference between, like, say, the content they're putting out and the content that, you know, Inside IOST is putting out, or the work that Metnix is doing, or somebody like this, right? I mean, it's when you can see, to your point, those kind of, you know, very, very factual time spent, you know, content or community building or whatever it is. When you see that on paper, it's a lot easier to understand. Okay, you know, here I get that. And Lawrence was actually in the chat. You know, Lawrence, who pretty much heads up all, you know, the majority of the biz dev for IOST. And it's interesting because they've gotten to a point now where they've got a few hundred nodes, and you know, the time that it takes to go through all of those contribution reports, make sure that nodes aren't, number one, just, you know, bullshitting, right? And saying like, oh, we did all this, but, you know, there's no links to that content, or there's no pictures of that community building, you know, meetup or whatever, right? They have to go through and with ICAC verify that this stuff is real. So you do all of that, and then you have to rank, you know, hundreds of these nodes.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, the basically what he came out and said was that they're working overtime to make sure that they hit the week or 2 week, you know, window on getting those reports out. So kind of because the node network has grown so much, they are going to be and are really now being forced to decentralize, you know, quote unquote, or distribute, or whatever you want to call it, this process of you know, kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, so on selection. So I think that's, I don't know if we'll see it in Q3, but definitely maybe Q4.
That was proposed, right?
What's that?
That was the proposition that they had.
Yeah, basically where it's like, you know, we're going to leave it up to, we're going to break down some percentage of, you know, maybe IOST's thoughts, ICAC's thoughts, nodes' thoughts, where nodes can't vote for themselves, and then the actual community's thoughts on where these, you know, nodes should fall into each tier.
And honestly, the conversations were happening in the chat when the results came out. Obviously, people were upset, like you're saying, and they wanted this process, like they wanted the process to be more decentralized. They're claiming, centralization, blah, blah, blah. But we've seen problems with decentralization happen when you're talking about voting. Like, it's not a one-step fix to just decentralize something. Now you have nodes that get, like, if you have a 1-for-1 vote now per token, now all the nodes that have a huge amount of tokens are going to vote themselves in. There's not a one-step fix to this. So people claiming like it's just 10 people. Well, there is an aspect of centralization that needs to happen when, you know, as something gets more and more trustless. I think you need to have a little bit more centralization there. You know, it's
at least to bootstrap it, right? I mean, that's always been, and this is something that I don't think IOST talks enough about, but their plan towards decentralization, I think, is one of the best that we've seen, right? Generally, it's, okay, well, you know, we're going to develop all this code, and other people are going to launch the mainnet, and once that happens, we're done, right? And what you have then, to your point, is then you have like you have all of these regional or you know, kind of collegiate nodes who just help each other out, and they say, okay, well, you know, we don't really care about the health of the network over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period, because we know that in 18 months we can make so many staking rewards by just, voting for each other and colluding, that it's going to be, it's going to be enough, and it'll be in a short amount of time. We can just flip that into the next thing or whatever. Whereas IOST has basically said, okay, the goal is decentralization, but in order to get there has to be some foundation laid. You can't just launch this and expect, people within different cultures and socioeconomic classes to all work together, just immediately. There has to be some kind of core growth and core belief and core kind of, organization behind the project first. And that's where IOST starts. They say, okay, we're not going to completely centralize this where we make everything happen, right? We're not going to be the only ones running nodes. We're not going to be the only ones selecting nodes in each tier, but we're going to do enough to make sure that this thing doesn't go off the rails and a bunch of bad actors kind of take it and ruin it, like we're seeing in so many other proof of stake or delegated proof of stake protocols.
And we use EOS as an example a lot just because we've been involved in it a lot, but you see that with what Dan Larimer did and that team over there. Hey, we're creating this super awesome idea, and then once it goes into the real world, it's not a utopia. People are going to figure out how to, game the system, and it's not going to be what's in Dan Larimer's mind. But they're doing good things over there at EOS too. A little bit before we move on, Zico was in our Sutler Ventures Telegram chat, and he was able to go through these rankings and compare them to the initial results, because you have that dispute period. So Attic Lab and Rate 3 moved higher. It looks like Alpha Coin Fund moved from Tier 3 to Tier 1. Endless dropped to Tier 2. Berminal dropped to Tier 3, while Burmy retained Tier 2. So that was just all information from Zico in our Sutler Ventures chat.
Interesting. Yeah, so that dispute period is actually, things are happening. People are making disputes there. Alpha Coin going from 3 to 1 is interesting.
Yeah.
There must
Somebody
be something. So there must be something going on behind the scenes. I mean, you have a lot of these kind of fund type nodes or investors who, probably behind the scenes are getting a lot done that you don't see in the press, whether it's like future partnerships or something like that. The Berminal going from 2 to 3 makes sense.
Yeah.
But Burmy staying in 2, I think that is significant and a sign that, I think as we've discussed in the Sutler Ventures Telegram, we're really starting to see that divergence between attention towards Berminal and attention towards Burmy, understanding that a lot of that is happening behind the scenes with the team, not necessarily Burmy is hitting IOST now. I think the context, if you don't know, is that it seems to most that the Berm team, Berm being the basically the protocol that exists on the IOST blockchain, Berminal and Burmy being the application layer projects, as I understand it, there's a lot of competition in the crypto news space. So Berminal, and based on the users that Berminal had versus the growth that Burmy saw, Berminal's kind of been left behind a little bit, or at least it's just kind of maintained, whereas Burmy is really the focus for that team.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that you mentioned, about these deals that are going on in the background, I wonder how much of that can be revealed, because what if there's some kind of a legal binding in terms of NDAs that are signed, if it's an investor, if they're doing something in the background that cannot be announced yet, which, is contribution to IOST, and IOST Foundation can know this information, as of now, but legally they can't release it yet until a specific date. That could be something in play.
So basically, if the contribution reports were made public, would that violate?
Yeah,
NDAs?
exactly. That might undermine, that structure. So I wonder if any of that is at play.
I would guess it is. So that's a really good point. So we'll move on to the we spent 20 minutes almost. a lot of cool topics before we get into the breaking news of the day. This breaking news actually came out before we started this podcast, which is not something that ever happens. Usually wrap up the podcast and then IOST team drops something big, but Nesttree partnered with IOST. This just dropped. Nesttree is essentially a messaging app. So imagine Telegram having its own crypto wallet, but it's based out of Korea. So again, we don't specifically know. Nestry, I would love to get some like user statistics, but based out of Korea, if they have a ton of users, it looked like to me, Mike, you had said you saw some tokens on there, but the ones I'm seeing are, I'm seeing Egg, which is their token, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Maker, and BNB. But you said there were a ton of other ERC20s as well as EOS.
Yeah, so it's basically, I mean, the classic, main three or major three protocols as we've seen, right? ETH, EOS. Well, I guess they don't have Tron, but Bitcoin's on there.
Yep.
So it's basically looks like Bitcoin, ETH, EOS, and then any ERC 20 tokens. So if IOST is being added, it's a good group to be added to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll have to temper our kind of feelings on it until we see any user statistics, because that's really going to say, hey, this is a huge messaging app in Korea, so that's an absolute banger of a partnership, or it's kind of a smaller messaging app, doesn't have a ton of users. Still good, but maybe not as good as if it was a huge one. So we'll try to get on that. Maybe we'll have something, next week. Maybe we'll figure out how many users they have, but yeah.
When Kakao, Dima?
When
Kakao. They just had some news come out about their blockchain. Something was going live or something. I can't remember what I saw, but
really,
yeah.
No, I haven't.
Korea seems to be, not just for IOST, but in general. I mean, like I remember back in the day, whenever Korean exchanges went crazy. Remember that? Like, I don't know if that was a year or 2 years ago, but like the Bitcoin price within Korea went like nuts, and it was skewing the coin market cap Bitcoin averages that everybody was like, oh my god, like Bitcoin's up like 20%, but really like the Coinbase and Kraken and everything, the price hadn't changed. It was just like the fact that coin market cap had the Korean exchanges in their global average.
Yeah,
so it looked, and anyway,
that's when the arbitrage guys got in the game, or like, well, it's time to make some money.
my favorite was early Blockfolio days when Ether Delta would like skew something and you'd have $1 billion in your portfolio. Yes. That was fun times.
For like 14 seconds and refresh. You'd be like, babe, we're going to the Bahamas. We're gonna buy the whole island. Like, oh, there it is. I'm still down 12%. Shit. Yeah, right.
All right, so before we get to Dima's desk, or the highlight of the Dima's desk, Dima, you had the Hello Pool announcement.
Yeah, Hello Pool joins as a staking node, as a partner node on IOST, which is great. We've talked about it last time, where we had another EOS block producer essentially, setting up a node on IOST. Which one was it?
Infinity Stones.
Infinity.
Yeah.
Infinity Stone, which those guys are really legit. Hello Pool as well. We have their top 21 block producers on EOS, and if you do the math in terms of like how many votes you need to be in, it's very tough to stay in the top 21 block production. So
you got to know some people.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah. So seeing these guys, coming from EOS and setting up shop here at IOST is great. Great news. Those are sharp people. So I'm looking forward to see how that's going to develop.
It's interesting because most of these pools are Chinese based or Asian based, and this Infinity Stones is United States based. So I believe Hello IOST is based out of China, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's Hello EOS on EOS and Hello Pool on IOST.
Hello IOST.
Is it Hello IOST?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Nice. It'll be interesting to see how many of these larger nodes start to care about the contribution rewards.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because obviously, like, Huobi as the top one, I think Huobi Pool is number one. They've got like 430 million votes or something crazy, right? Like they're in basically every block production round. They're making, they're producing so many blocks there that the contribution rewards at this token price don't really make a significant difference. But what happens when the token price jumps a bit, and certainly they're making well more in the in just the general block production, the daily rewards. But what happens then when the contribution rewards, the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 or tier 1 and tier 4 are like, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars? It's like, okay, well, we have the resources of an Infinity Stones or a Hello IOST or this, like, if we just do a certain amount, maybe we can get to tier 1. What happens then? That's kind of what I'm interested in down the road, 6, 9, 12 months from now, as we see some token price growth where those contribution rewards start to be,
right,
pretty significant to just completely forget about.
Yeah, and you think, after like this recent contribution report, people, kind of got upset. In your scenario,
Oh my God.
they can't imagine what's gonna happen. Hopefully they have things in line in terms of grading and decentralization and all those things. But obviously somebody will be always upset.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Well, we'll head into Dimitri's desk, or the highlights of Dimitri's desk. You can find, I'm sure he'll talk about it in the actual video, but you can find his videos on our YouTube channel as well, the full length videos where he's talking about multiple coins. Did you have anything there, Dima?
No, let's roll it.
All right.
What's going on, guys? So welcome to another episode of Dimitri's Desk. Here's what you should expect for the agenda on our next episode. As always, we're going to jump into price action from last week and where we are now. We're going to take a look at who is getting wrecked, which alts are getting wrecked the most, how to manage your risk during this volatility, and how to position yourself where you don't get wicked out. And I will also share something that I've noticed in terms of market cap and Bitcoin dominance. All this and more on the next episode of Dimitri's Desk.
Another nice desk. Not some hopeful news and obviously a big dump that we've seen. So
yeah,
appreciate the tips as always.
Absolutely, yes. That it was an exit scam, so I'm continuing to do these.
This is good. Yes, always important.
For those of you at home, Dima always records Dimitri's desk after the episode, so we always have to intro into something that we have to figure out what he said. Pretty much, we have to guess. Oh yeah, great one.
The jig is up.
Yeah, we do that so you have the latest version. If he did it right now and we posted it tomorrow, it'd wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't be up to date. Yeah, this one he's probably just ripping cigs. Fuck, the range is gone. What am I gonna talk about?
Deadlines.
Oh man. Well, moving on. Another bi-weekly report from IOST. So again, for those who don't know, hopefully you know by now. I feel like this is the 4th episode in a row I've said this here. Basically a report that comes out summarizing some of the biggest news from IOST and the IOST community. So we always started off some updates on transaction numbers, number of dApps on IOST, blah, blah, blah. Where we sit today as of July 15th at 2:38, we've got about 85 million transactions. We've got almost 330,000 accounts on IOST. And about 34 dApps. So still continuous growth. It'll be interesting to see if that continuous growth is affected if we get in, kind of a sustained dip down under 10K here for Bitcoin and under a penny for IOST. I think I don't know what you'll say on Dimitri's desk, but I think we'll bounce. What's that?
You have to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll bounce back up above a penny and above 10K relatively quickly. So I don't think we'll see any effect there. But, end of the day, still consistent growth for IOST, especially on the transaction numbers. I think it was 2 episodes ago we were kind of comparing IOST to EOS and the growth that IOST has had in the time that EOS had launched. It's basically 4 or 5 months, right? IOST is outpacing EOS at this point. So some nice statistics there. They had some updates as far as dApps go. Some smaller dApps that went live. Some pretty standard stuff, kind of click and play dApps there. We've seen a lot of those come out. That's probably the majority of the 34 dApps that we see on
Check
IOST.
out the new dApps ranking.
Yeah, dApp rankings are coming up. They talked a little bit about the Binance charity initiative, which we talked about I think 2 weeks ago. They did talk again about the Japanese law firm, which we had talked about. They basically kind of added some more information there. We were right. So, pat on the back there for you guys. Basically, that the whole point of that partnership is to, basically break down the regulatory barriers for Iowa's Tea in Japan. So I would expect to see over the coming weeks or months that we see some exchange listings in Japan or, other kind of wins for Iowa's Tea, assuming this law firm is able to continue to rock and roll. Go ahead. I was going to say they talked about the Coldlar wallet, which is one of the hardware wallets that came on board. We've got another decentralized exchange that is going to be supporting Iowa's Tea as soon as August, so that's nice. It's going to be called Dextop, which is from the exchange Buybox. So, as Binance moves and creates a decentralized exchange, I imagine a lot of these other centralized exchanges are trying to do something similar. So, Buybox is a big one. Their new DEX will be coming in August called Dextop. So, Q, what were you going to say there?
I was going to say they have the social media statistics on here, and Korea Cacao has to be the most stable social media group I have ever seen. They hit 3K exactly for the last 5 weeks, bi-weekly reports in a row.
No less, no more.
Yeah,
oh my
they don't
God.
let people in or out of that.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't. Maybe.
Yeah. Another thing that was cool. IOC got listed on Upbit exchange. They're, as always, running a competition. It's great to see them. When they get listed, they pair it up with the competition in terms of trading. IOST got listed and paired up with the South Korean currency on there, and they're running a competition for 5 million IOST.
Nice.
So
I didn't know this. It says Upbit was co-launched by an exchange called Dunamu. I don't know who that is, but also Bittrex.
Probably butchered that.
Dunamu, I don't know. But yeah, 5 million IOST there. So if you're a giant market maker or have millions of dollars or dozens of millions of dollars to throw at a trading competition,
it's
rock and roll.
It's a huge Korean exchange. Looks like, because their biggest volume traded is BTC against the Korean currency. So we have $226 $million traded in last 24 hours. Now, considering last 24 hours was pretty actionable, but still, again, $226 million in 24 hours on BTC against the Korean currency. That's not small potatoes.
No, definitely
so
not.
that's good.
Yeah, it's who are the largest Korean exchanges? Upbit,
BitHum,
KuCoin, BitHum.
Which we got listed on as well.
Yep. So again, I mean, I feel like every week, I don't know what you guys talked about last week because I haven't watched the podcast yet, or listened to it. But,
Wow.
I feel like there's so much trolling in that episode that I just can't handle it.
I feel like you're our core audience and you're not listening to it.
Yeah, right.
I only like to hear
Should these thumbs up or
actually
what?
when you guys talk, I just fast forward until I get to myself talk.
Yeah,
He just fast forwards the Dimitri desk.
Yeah, right.
5
exactly.
seconds. He oh wait, what am I talking again? Boom, boom, boom.
Oh God. Well, now that we're officially completely off the rails here on the podcast, why don't you hit those DApp rankings, Q?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear, but if you lose me, there's a huge storm going on outside. So if you
it
kind of
got a little bit dark there in the background. I was wondering what's happening. Did you pay the light bill?
It looks like
if Q disappears, he's dumping his EOS back at $3.
What? But anyways, DApp rankings is cool. It's actually getting more and more interesting as I go on. I kind of messed up my mic here, but anyways, I dropped these DApp rankings and they get posted on DApp.com. So again, thanks for the DApp.com team for posting all these articles. It's awesome. It gets a lot of exposure for IOST, but I posted the DApp rankings into a couple of chats, one of them which is IOST Play. So you'd think IOST Play would be super happy about what's going on here because they're number one. I'll put the image up there so that you guys can see the entire list, but they got on me for Endless Dice being B tier, being the tops of the B tier, and Guppies being behind them. So Guppies being the platform that is along with IOST Play. So they had 3 points that they kind of made, and I'm going to be civil about this. They weren't very civil. I got a lot of names. and I tried my best to not be upset. But anyways, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. So Endless, I'm going to go through it really quick. So they removed certain countries without saying anything. Without VPN. So if you were a United States user using Endless Dice, you would not be able to access the platform without a VPN. And they didn't tell anyone. They didn't do anything like that. They also turned their Telegram group into an announcements channel. So it was like people talking, and then nothing because they turned it into an announcements channel. And the third thing they did, there's this like perpetual Ponzi game. I think I showed you guys this.
Was it Just Game?
Yeah, it's Just Game.
Yeah, that was in the BioLucky report. Yeah.
Okay, so Just Game actually is so what they did was there's an actual team called FOMO 3D, and they were the creators.
Oh yeah, I know those guys.
They were the creators of this like perpetual Ponzi game, which is coming out in like a week or two. But it got everybody into a frenzy. I showed you guys the link a while ago. Anyways, Endless kind of copied them almost to the T. Like even like Just Game is the name of the game that these guys put out, but the Endless guys, it's called Just Game VIP. So all those three things, that was kind of the IOST play guys in one word or another said they shouldn't be up there. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Endless continues to struggle from a social media standpoint, right? Understanding that they are the same team behind Berm, which is Burmy and Berminal. I don't know if it's between needs with IOST, needs with Endless. Now it's Just Game. Plus there's Burmy and Berminal going on. Like it seems to me that there's like too much going on behind the scenes for everything to be managed in a transparent way, at least, right? Like if you're just banning people without telling them because of their country and then changing the Telegram to announcements, like it's very clear that Burmy seems to be the focus, but I think until we see that, people are like, what the hell? Like Endless is a big one, and now all of a sudden all this stuff is happening. So I mean, I agree with IOST plays thoughts, because they certainly there's some competition, right, that's happening where they want to see their rival that we've certainly hyped up as a rival continue to fall for bad behavior, and if they don't, then it's kind of like, what the hell?
Just to be clear, it wasn't IOST play. It was the users in the Telegram.
Oh, okay,
channel.
Gotcha.
It wasn't.
We don't want to start a war.
And so, and also to your point in terms of Berminal team being Endless Dice, I don't know how much that is connected actually, because even though when I visited Ray and he said that he made Endless game on EOS with the developers there, and that migrated here, I'm not too sure that Ray is connected still to that. I think it was just a project that was handling and then essentially some people just took it over and they ran it by themselves while he's focusing on Burmy and Berminal and so on. So I don't think it's the same team.
Yeah, he could have sold it. I mean,
that's most likely what happened. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, those are all the points they made, to which I had said like none of that is. They used the word scam. They said I shouldn't be promoting it at all. Which like honestly, none of those things indicate a scam. It's some of that's unethical, and I wouldn't do business that way, but it's not a scam. And I think scam is thrown around in our industry way too much. To indicate people who are just doing unethical business practices. I wouldn't do it, but that's everyone's option.
The question is, where does Endless fall next week?
Yeah, that's a good point. So they'll probably be C or D tier because of the things that were pointed out. And I'm trying to be, as objective as possible. So the things that were pointed out to me, I did some research on them, and they in fact were true. But it doesn't mean they're a scam. But if you've ever seen a video of meat getting dropped into that's exactly what happened to me. But anyways, so IOST Play took the top spot. Pure Wallet, actually, I did some DD on, and I created my wallet. Honestly, it's over Token Pocket right now for me.
Wow.
And I'll give you a couple of reasons. One, it seemed like way more clean than Token Pocket, and it seemed almost like it was made for an IOST user as opposed to, hey, IOST is just on our wallet. So they have like IOST news on their wallet, like just IOST centric news, not crypto centric when you type on the news. And then the actual DApp Explorer is broken down into categories within IOST. So you have gambling, you have gaming, you have DeFi, you have all these things, you have exchanges. Like it seems just like more of a fit, and it seems like they built this specifically for IOST, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That's interesting. I'll have to check it out because I've been a big fan of Token Pocket. But if it's if it's better and cleaner, it was from IOST ABC, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the IOST ABC guys, free wallet creation, so they cover the cost for you. So yeah, give it a try. It's on the Apple Store. That's another thing for Token Pocket. It's not on the Apple Store anymore. They're doing something where you can't even find it.
Oh wow!
You have to go to like their website. A couple more before we move on. Guppies was added. Guppies is that new IOST lending, so you can lend out your IOST to get iPlay tokens and then stake those on their platform, or you can borrow IOST via iPlay tokens. They started in B tier. IOST Win moved up. They've been doing really well on 24-hour users and volume statistics. Liebi Pool, I know we talked about these guys. They had that original DeFi feature. Do you remember us talking about this?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, they had that to like 24% APR or something like that. Well, I was eventually going to move them up to A because of your conversation. You're like, why isn't Liebi Pool in A?
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Mike?
That was Mike.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Where you were like, well, I was basically like, hey, everything in B tier has something like wrong with it a little bit.
Right.
So Liebi Pool, I was going to move them up to A, and then you go on their website, the APR is down to like 15%. So there's other than the unstaking period of like instant, there's no real benefit there. And then there's CD and F tier, which will eventually most likely die. So that's pretty much it for the DApp rankings. They're getting more fun to put together, man. As we get more and more DApps, they're getting a lot more fun, and people are obviously voicing their opinion. I feel like the IOST team almost.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy time for the IOST team. Shout out the community managers. I think Dimitri's a major one on the IOST main chat. Not you, but the other Dimitri. IOST Dimitri, not SV Dimitri. But I mean, listen, right? Like today being Tuesday, it's been a rough day. Bitcoin dumped under 10K. IOST has obviously been under a penny for like 48 hours now or so. As we started the episode, and as you said, Dimitri, like, token prices not always represent fundamental value.
Right.
I think we preach that almost, probably every other episode, at least, because you see this time and time again, and a pattern is starting to emerge, at least for me, where having seen other protocols like ETH and EOS and seeing kind of the slow growth that happens, there's always that retracement that moment, from a token price standpoint as fundamentals increase. And yes, there are things that the IOST team could be doing better, especially in your English speaking countries. I think that's where certainly we see a lot of the qualms, just because it doesn't seem that has been a focus as of yet for the team. They've been really focusing on your Japan, your South Korea, your China, right? But even with those issues, right, seeing things like Guppies, seeing like the passion behind IOST play, seeing that accounts and transactions and number of dApps are continuing to increase, I can't, help but see that as a positive. And I'm not just trying to blow smoke up anybody's ass now. Like, it's a legitimate pattern that I'm seeing relative to EOS or ETH, having held those tokens and seen that at that point before they started, suffering with their own issues. So, I still think that even though we've had this dip, I still think we're headed in a good direction. I still think we're seeing the growth that we need to see relative to where IOST is compared to these other protocols, new or old. So yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, those DApp rankings they're getting exciting. I mean, you've got a lot to catch up on. It's like 3 or 7 new dApps every week or so.
It's true, and I encourage people, if you do look at those DApp rankings and you have a reason why a DApp shouldn't be up there. Now, I shouldn't be taking the advice from a competitor all the time, like IOST Play users, but it does help me understand it, because I can't, like, as this gets blown out, it's going to be hard for me to research every single DApp down to the minute details. I've been talking for a while now, so if you guys want to hit the next topic, you can go ahead. I don't want to,
Real quick, Dimitri's got something here that we forgot to add to the agenda, but it's an important poll we're doing on Twitter.
Yeah, it's a poll that we put out. Basically, how important do you think Ledger integration is for IOST from scale to from 1 to 10? And basically, we have the results. We still have 1 day left. Basically, trying to gauge, what is the interest out there. But right now, we're sitting at 63% very important, and then 27% saying it's nice to have. We actually here at Stellar Ventures, we already have a developer that is ready to move forward with integration of IOST into Ledger S. And we're now just waiting for essentially IOST to greenlight and agree on the bounty for this.
Yeah, I mean we're ready to rock, right? I mean you're hearing it right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Yeah. That we're ready to rock. So we hope to see in the coming weeks or months here that we can get that IOST Ledger integration done for you. Definitely Q3. Right. Obviously, IOST is super busy, right? They're working on a lot of things globally, but it seems already in the poll, and it might be over by the time you guys hear this, that Ledger's a big one. So, do us a favor, ask around in the IOST chat. We're really trying to push them to get that done. I think that'll be a big win for IOST. It'll be some nice PR in the countries that Ledger's really dominant, and will be a nice addition to the hardware wallets that support IOST like Coldlar and those others.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that's good work on your guys' part. I know you guys have been trying to get that integration done for a little while. So we'll move on to comments here. We've got Chris, we've got Electric Funk, and we've got Sam Goldberg Silverstein. So that's a really name there. But
I miss Chris. Where's Chris?
So Chris, actually, the comment says what he's been doing. He's saying, "What? Thanks for the shout out, but I've quit Telegram since the 1st of July. No more answering questions." So it looked like that kind of took its toll on him. I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, Telegram. If you don't know how to manage Telegram, it can really monopolize your life. So I'm sure that he's, just taking a break. So shout out Chris. Sorry to see him go from the Telegram group, but that's where he's been, Dima.
Yeah, man. Really miss him. Hopefully he comes back soon.
Shout out Chris.
Card or something.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I will
take some times in the. Are there mountains in the Netherlands?
I'm sure there's some type of mountain.
Some type of hill or yeah, dude. Go to the mountains, disconnect. Yeah, come back to us. We'll be all right. Now's a good time to leave anyway. Price wise, just get out.
Good call. So I think Electric Funk had something to say about the last podcast. He said, my poetry's deep and I never fall. So I don't know what that is in relation to, but thank you, Electric Funk, for the comment. And then, Sam Goldberg Silverstein said first. So we go through all the comments here. It doesn't really matter what the deal was. We were second. I would like to put out after first. So we go through all the comments here. Please leave comments in the comment section. These are like really fun to talk about whenever we get on the podcast. So
clearly your guys' episode last week without me did not generate very much hype or response. So glad to be back. Glad to help you guys along. We'll probably
So, okay, everybody put in the chat, who is the most influential person on this
in the comments, yeah.
Let's see. Dimitri, run a poll.
I'm setting it up right now.
Cancel the Ledger. I'm gonna take all 11 of my fake accounts and comment. Like what happened to Julie or whatever her name is? It was every week was smash that like button.
Yeah. What happened to her? Nora.
Yeah.
I think Nora dumped it 0.8 of a penny, probably.
That's fine. We understand. But anyways, that's pretty much our episode. Like I said, I think the most team updates that we've ever done are going to happen in the next week to 2 weeks. Some have to do with the group that we're kind of putting together. We're not going to say much other than that, as well as some things for Sutler Ventures, quote unquote, members that we're going to be releasing here shortly that can be beneficial to you guys. So that's going to be a lot of stuff. I can't wait to roll that out, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, good things coming.
Yep.
Dimitri, pleasure as always. Q, pleasure as always.
Yep.
Until next time.